We are live in Studio B. This is your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play alongside Jerem Jordan. I'm Spencer Linton. It is our pleasure now to welcome in friend of the program and a college football insider and expert. He is Brett McMurphy from the Action Network. Brett, welcome back to BYU Sports Nation. How are you today?
Good to be with you guys. Wow, BYU, pretty nice start for the Cougs, but good to be back with you guys.
Incredible stuff for sure, but we do want to ask you, because we know you are a Tampa native, how things are going. We're thinking about you, definitely thinking about everybody in the city and everyone that has been affected by the hurricane, but how are you personally?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for asking. The part of town I'm in wasn't impacted by any of the flooding, but certainly a lot of people in South Tampa got hit pretty bad. Obviously, you guys saw the images of Tropicana Field in St. Pete, and then a little bit further down in Sarasota, Fort Myers and stuff. It's pretty tough. 2 hurricanes in a few weeks is tough to take, but I appreciate you checking on me.
Yeah, hoping for the best. Let's talk about less important things like football. BYU 6-0, Brett, so far. What's been the most surprising thing, in your opinion, about the Cougars' start?
Well, I was dumb enough to think that they had no shot to win the conference before the season. So I want to send out my apologies to Kalani, to Tom Holmoe, to Cosmo, to all the Cougar fans and the relatives nationwide. I think the biggest thing is I knew and I know you guys probably agree, the Big 12 we thought was going to be crazy. And I literally joked before the season I was going to pull names out of a hat and probably have a better chance to pick the winners as of actually breaking it down. And I think I was right on that. I think the biggest thing for me with BYU is look, I've got them probably higher ranked than most people on my AP ballot. But I'm still not sure how good they are. And that's not to be negative towards BYU. It's just I'm not sure. The SMU game, that win looks better and better every week. The Baylor win, Baylor, they jumped up early on Baylor and then just held on. So, kind of take that with a grain of salt. The Kansas State win, a couple of non-offensive touchdowns kind of tilted that game. Arizona's, certainly not the Arizona from last year. And I think probably the most surprising thing is you look at the Big 12 offensive numbers, and of the 5 worst offenses in the Big 12 conference, BYU is the 3rd worst offense in the Big 12 conference. And of those 5, they're the only ones with a winning record in conference play. So it tells me their defense is playing lights out, one of the top defenses in the league. And obviously special teams has been big. But, hey, look, give BYU credit. They're taking advantage of everything. They got Oklahoma State coming in this week. I think Oklahoma State will announce something officially Thursday. Don't be surprised if Alan Bowman is not starting quarterback. They'll probably go with the freshman there. And then you look at the rest of the way, the toughest games, Kansas, Houston. Kansas is at home. And then basically, the next 3 weeks for BYU. And again, I'm not belittling BYU. You're taking advantage of the situation. You're going to be playing against a backup quarterback against Oklahoma State. You're going to be playing against a backup quarterback at UCF, and you're going to be playing against a backup quarterback at Utah.
Fair.
And that's great. Keep piling up those wins, because you know what? You need them. And if you go into the Big 12 title game at 11-1 and lose that game, and you're 11-2, I think, whether it's BYU or somebody else in the Big 12, I think a 2-loss Big 12 runner-up can get into the playoff. I don't think a 3-loss runner-up can get into the playoff. So, hey, keep stacking up these wins and have Cosmo parachute into the playoffs.
Follow him at Brett_McMurphy on X. He is our college football insider today. And, Brett, when you look at BYU, fans understandably get very excited when they see BYU show up in your projection for the college football playoff. Now, is BYU's resume strong enough to have a legitimate at-large opportunity, or do you feel like BYU has to win the Big 12 title game to feel comfortable about getting in?
It depends on how many losses they have. I think it's that simple. I don't think, again, if you're saying BYU does not win the Big 12 title, what would it take for them to get in a large bid? I really think 11-2 BYU would get in to the playoff. Now, you know, the big comparisons, you're going to be, BYU would be compared against probably a lot of 3-loss teams from the SEC or from the Big Ten. And again, we don't know what the committee is going to do. Are they going to reward teams from the Big Ten and the SEC for losing to better teams than BYU beat? That's the unknown. But again, since they've been doing the selection committee the last 10, 11 years, the one thing, you know, everyone talks about all these different metrics they use and all this minutia of, I'll call it garbage because it's garbage. The only thing they've considered, if you look at it, is the loss column. And last year's the first time, obviously Florida State, but they lost their quarterback, where a team with the fewest losses did not get in the playoff. So is that suddenly, are we suddenly going to have this big change now because we go from 4 teams to 12 teams? Are they going to fall back on the fewest number of losses is the team that gets in? Now, I'm not comparing BYU to something like a Liberty who isn't going to play anybody or any group of 5. But I really think, you know, a 2-loss Big 12 runner-up, whether it's BYU or somebody else, will get in because you look at the Big Ten, you look at the SEC, they're going to beat each other up. You know, after week 1, we had 14 teams from the SEC in the 12-team playoff, and now they start playing each other. And okay, well, Ole Miss doesn't look as likely. Missouri's fallen off the cliff. You know, LSU's coming off a big win. Heck, I think they'll lose at Arkansas. Alabama's, you know, stumbling. So, you know, what are they going to do with those guys? I don't think they're automatically going to put them in. Certainly none of those teams get in with 4 losses. 3 losses, then you're in a real dangerous category when being compared to a Big 12 runner-up with 2 losses. And then you look at the ACC, you know, obviously for BYU and the Big 12, you need Miami, Clemson, and SMU. You don't need all 3 of those to keep winning. You need, you know, 2 of those and to knock the third kind of down the pecking order. But hey, SMU wins the ACC. Guess what? BYU has an incredible strength of schedule win. So I guess you do want to root for SMU, but maybe hope Miami and Clemson shuffle down. But I guess to, you know, answer your question, I think 2 or fewer losses for a Big 12 runner-up, including BYU, will get them a spot in the playoff.
That would be awesome. Like 1984, BYU needs a little bit of luck, keep winning, see what happens. If it shakes out, great. I want to follow up on something you said about Oklahoma State. So are you saying you expect Garrett Rangel to be the guy, or the freshman Zane Flores, or somebody else?
Well, either Rangel or Flores.
Okay.
Gundy said as much in his press conference earlier this week that they have to make a decision by Thursday. Flores has had some injury issues this season. I don't think he's actually even played this year, but if he's healthy, he could come in there. Rangel has more experience. He's played some games this year. He started, I think he started last year, maybe at versus Kansas or Kansas State. So going into the season, I thought they were really high on Flores. But then he had some injury stuff. You know, I think it caught him by surprise that Bowman returned, to be quite, you know, very honest. And it's weird. You know, look, I'm an Oklahoma State alum. I'm shocked, but not shocked at our struggles, because usually when we go into a season with high expectations, we usually don't meet those expectations. But to kind of be where they're at right now, you know, this is a huge game for OSU, because Gundy has either the 6th or 7th longest streak in the history of college football, most consecutive winning seasons by a coach at the same school. I think Lavelle Edwards is in that top 5, I believe.
Yeah.
So Gundy's, you know, got this incredible streak going on, consecutive winning seasons. We're not talking 6 and 6. We're talking actual winning seasons. So can Oklahoma State get to 7 wins? the big issue, I was talking about BYU's, offense not doing so hot. Well, this could cure your running game because Oklahoma State has lost their two best players on defense to injuries. They have not been able to stop anybody on the ground. Utah ran against them. They couldn't stop West Virginia. So this will be this. I know it's cliche. One of two things: a very desperate Oklahoma State team, or an Oklahoma State team that's thrown in the towel. I think we'll know early on which one it is.
Brett McMurphy of the Action Network is on BYU Sports Nation. Let's stay with the Cowboys in that Friday night showdown against BYU, and you were talking about BYU's run game. I'm still trying to figure out how Oklahoma State doesn't have just an unbelievable run effort with Ollie Gordon and so much experience back on the offensive line. What do you make of that, Brett?
I was hoping you guys would tell me. I mean, I figured, look, after how well Ollie did last year, all the build-up, I mean, it's human nature. It's obvious. You can't live up to that. That's why we don't have any repeat Heisman winners. You can't live up to the expectations of last year. However, the drop-off has just been, remarkable. I can't explain it. Certainly Gundy can. If Gundy knew what was going on, he would change it. The entire offensive line was back. Oklahoma State had 19 or 20 starters returning. Yeah, it is. That's one of the, that's one of the great mysteries this year in college football is what has happened to Oklahoma State's offense, specifically the run game, because you look at the league standings, and the only team worse than Oklahoma State's in rushing offense is Colorado, and Colorado doesn't try to run. So technically, Oklahoma State has the worst rushing attack in the Big 12, I guess.
Brett, it's always great to catch up with you. We certainly appreciate the time you spend with us on BYU Sports Nation, and we are so glad that you're doing well in Tampa after a really scary, unfortunate situation. So hope to talk to you again soon and that our paths cross soon. Be well, and let's do it again.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Brett McMurphy of the Action Network, college football insider on BYU Sports Nation, thinks BYU, with an 11-2 record, if they lost that championship game, would have a resume to get in the college football playoffs. I
like that because there's a lot that could happen, right? Could be a one big league, two bid. I don't see three. But right now, hey, BYU's in position. Let's go. Check out